The colony of Valen Reach sat beside a wide silver river that had once been the lifeline of its people. Every house, every crop, and every path depended on that flowing water. For many years, the settlers lived peacefully there. The colony was small, built with light steel homes and glass roofs to collect sunlight. The people planted long fields of grain near the riverbanks, and children often played near the shallow waters. Life was slow and kind. Then one season the rain failed. The skies remained bright and dry for months. The fields turned pale and cracks formed across the ground. The people began to worry, but they believed the river would protect them. It had never failed before. Yet by the middle of the fourth dry month, the river started to shrink. Mira was the first to notice the change. She worked as a field engineer, maintaining the colony's water channels. Each morning she took readings from the meters placed along the river. That morning she found the lowest reading ever recorded. She knelt beside the water and watched it move slowly between the rocks. The surface no longer shone like a mirror. It looked tired, like something struggling to survive. Mira stood and looked across the riverbed. In the center, near the deep bend, something caught her eye. There was a dark shape under the muddy water. It did not look like a stone. It seemed too round, too smooth. At first, she thought it might be an old storage tank that had rolled in during the floods years ago. But as the water kept lowering day by day, more of the shape became visible. 3 days later, she returned with 2 assistants, Ryan and Tova. They brought hand tools to clear the mud. The river had retreated enough for them to step onto the exposed riverbed. The sun burned overhead and their boots sank into the wet soil. Mira felt both nervous and excited. She had grown up near this river, but she had never seen what lay beneath it. Ryan brushed away a layer of clay and revealed a smooth black surface. It was metal, not rock. The surface was curved like part of a dome. Tova tapped it gently with her tool and the sound was hollow. They continued digging and uncovered a circular edge. Around it were faint symbols carved into the metal. The writing looked old and strange. It did not belong to any current colony design. Mira took photos and sent them to the colony council. Within hours, the message spread through the settlement. People gathered along the banks, whispering and pointing at the uncovered shape. Some said it was an ancient storage vault. Others believed it was a crashed probe from Earth's early expansion. The oldest member of the colony, Elder Bran, warned them to be careful. He said that when the ground reveals what it has hidden, one should first ask why it was hidden at all. The next day, the council held a short meeting. The leader, Administrator Sen, gave permission for an inspection but ordered that the site remain under control. He did not want rumors turning into chaos. Mira was chosen to lead the team because she had found the structure and had experience in field analysis. She felt proud but also uneasy. The dark metal surface looked lifeless, yet it seemed to be watching. Mira and her crew set up equipment around the site. They used scanners to read the material. The readings were confusing. The surface was made of an alloy unknown to their records. It reflected some signals and absorbed others. It did not match any known construction pattern. Even more strange, the alloy was giving off a faint pulse of energy. Ryan pointed at the display. "It's not completely dead," he said. Tova frowned. "Maybe it's still drawing power from something inside." Mira did not answer. She walked around the curved structure and ran her hand over the surface. The metal felt cold even under the hot sun. The edges were buried deep in the mud, suggesting that the rest of the structure went far below. She guessed it might be a chamber or an entrance to something larger. When night came, they left the site under guard. Mira stayed behind a little longer. The stars shone above the silent riverbed. The faint sound of insects came from the dry reeds. She looked at the black surface again and thought she saw a thin line of light moving across it. She blinked, but the line vanished. Perhaps it was a reflection. Still, her heart beat faster. The next morning, the team returned to continue the work. The water had dropped even lower overnight, uncovering more of the circular pattern. They found a joint line running around the metal ring, like the edge of a sealed door. Mira used a laser cutter to clean the mud from the groove. Under the layer of dirt, she noticed small indentations that formed a locking mechanism. "This looks like an entry hatch," Ryan said. Mira nodded. But no colony ever built a structure under this river. The first settlers came only 80 years ago. This metal looks much older. They tried several times to open the hatch but failed. The lock did not respond to force or to their energy tools. It was as if the mechanism only obeyed a signal they did not understand. After many attempts, they stopped and took samples instead. Mira decided to study the alloy further in the lab. That night, as the team rested in the nearby camp, a strange sound echoed across the valley. It was low and deep, almost like a hum. The guards near the river shouted for Mira. She ran down and saw that the hatch was glowing faintly. The symbols carved on its surface were now visible, shining with a soft blue light. The lines of light ran around the edges, meeting in the center before fading again. Tova whispered, "It's awake." No one spoke for a moment. The light faded and the surface turned dark again. Mira recorded everything and reported it to the council. Administrator Sen ordered all non-essential personnel away from the site until they understood what had happened. But curiosity had already taken root in everyone's mind. Something beneath the river was alive in its own way. Mira and her team set up sensors to monitor any movement or energy spikes. For 2 days, nothing happened. The readings stayed flat. The river continued to dry up. Then, on the third night, the ground under the hatch trembled slightly. The sensors picked up a sudden burst of low-frequency sound. The hatch released a sharp hiss and the air around it shimmered like heat waves. Ryan pointed to the scanner. "Pressure inside is changing. There is air movement from below." Mira took a cautious step closer. The central plate of the hatch rotated by a fraction, then stopped. A faint mist escaped from the edge, carrying a stale smell of age. It was not harmful, but it felt ancient, like air that had been trapped for centuries. The metal gave a final creak and then went still. The hatch had not fully opened, but something inside had shifted. Mira realized they were standing above a sealed structure, possibly a chamber or a capsule buried deep under the riverbed. It had survived storms, floods, and time itself. If the symbols were truly human, then this thing was from an age long before the colony's founding. She stood silently, thinking about the pioneers who had first left Earth. There were many stories about lost ships and failed colonies. Some people said that early explorers had gone too far into unknown space, never to return. Could this be one of them? When dawn came, the people of Valen Reach gathered once more by the banks. They looked at the dark surface of the metal plate and whispered to each other. Mira saw both hope and fear in their faces. The river had given them life, and now as it vanished, it revealed something left behind by their ancestors. Administrator Sen approached her and asked, "Do you believe it is dangerous?" Mira answered honestly, "I don't know yet, but I think it is human." Her words spread through the crowd. The people felt pride and confusion mixed together. Somewhere deep beneath the drying river, a forgotten part of humanity waited to be discovered again. As the sun rose higher, its light reflected off the dark metal, sending a sharp glint across the water. The colony of Valen Reach stood at the edge of history, unaware that the vanishing river had uncovered not only a tomb, but also a message from the past that could change their future. Mira looked once more at the strange hatch and felt a quiet certainty. Whatever lay beneath the river had been hidden for a reason, yet it was also meant to be found. The sun rose red across the valley, casting a pale light on the half-dry riverbed. The once steady current was now a slow trickle moving around the dark metal disc that rested in the center. Around it stood tall poles carrying scanners, cables, and floodlights that hummed quietly in the morning air. The people of Valen Reach watched from a distance as Mira and her team returned to continue their study. Administrator Sen had given them permission to work only during daylight. At night, the site was guarded and sealed off. Too many strange events had already happened. The glowing symbols and the soft humming from beneath the ground had made people uneasy. Some of the farmers wanted the structure to be buried again, saying that the river was sacred and should not be disturbed. But curiosity was stronger than fear. Humanity had always searched for meaning in the unknown. Mira wore a lightweight suit and carried a small tablet linked to the scanners. Rian and Tova followed her with new tools brought from the colony's maintenance hub. As they approached the dark plate, they noticed faint scratches around the edge, as if the metal had shifted slightly during the night. "The lock might be loosening," Ryan said, kneeling beside the groove. Tova ran a sensor over the surface. No change in energy output, but the material temperature dropped again. "It is colder than the air around it." Mira nodded and set up the recording system. The air smelled of dry soil and metal dust. She placed her hand on the surface. It no longer felt smooth. The surface had a texture, like fine ridges spiraling outward from the center. She wondered if it was part of a mechanism that opened the hatch. They spent the morning cleaning the mud and clearing the edge completely. As they worked, Mira kept glancing at the faint carvings near the outer rim. They looked almost like letters. Ryan noticed her staring. "You keep looking at those symbols," he said. "Do they mean something to you?" "They look familiar," Mira replied. "When I was studying engineering history, I saw patterns like these in the old archives. They were used in the first century of colonization. If that is true, this structure could be more than 300 years old." Ryan looked surprised. That was before any ships reached this sector. "Yes," Mira said quietly. "Which means someone came here long before us." The thought filled the air with silence. The only sound was the distant buzz of insects and the soft whisper of the weakening river. By midday, they had uncovered a small panel beside the hatch. It was rectangular and looked like an access console. The glass surface was dark, but below it lay the same spiral symbols. Mira brushed away the last layer of clay and stepped back. "It could be a control panel," she said, "but it has no power." Tova handed her a portable cell pack. "We can try to link it." Mira connected the cell using a thin wire. At first, nothing happened. Then the surface of the panel flickered. Faint light lines formed on the glass, creating a circle that pulsed slowly. The team stepped back in awe. The symbols began to move, rotating like gears. "It is still alive," Rian whispered. The circle stopped spinning and displayed 3 solid points of light. Mira reached out carefully. The panel responded by projecting a short wave of energy across the hatch. The metal ring trembled slightly, and dust rose from the edges. The deep rumbling sound that followed was not loud, but it could be felt through the ground. The people watching from the banks gasped. "Step back," Mira said, pulling Ryan and Tova behind a shield. The hatch vibrated once more and then fell silent. The glow on the panel faded, leaving behind faint traces of heat. "What happened?" Tova asked. "It reacted," Mira said, "but maybe it needs more power or a specific signal." Ryan frowned. "Or maybe it is protecting itself." The 3 stood quietly, unsure what to do next. Mira decided to record every detail. They ran a full scan of the surrounding ground and found several buried shapes extending outward from the central plate. It was clear now that the hatch was only the top of a larger structure hidden under the riverbed. The scanners showed thick walls made of the same alloy and a hollow space beneath them. "It is a chamber," Mira said, "a complete underground facility." When the council received the data, Administrator Sen sent a message instructing them to continue with caution. He promised to bring a historian and a tech specialist from the capital colony to help decode the symbols. Mira agreed, but she felt uneasy. The idea of leaving the site alone for a full day made her nervous. That night, the guards kept close watch. The wind blew dry sand across the metal surface, making a soft hiss. Inside the camp, Mira could not sleep. She stared at the faint light of her data tablet and reviewed the symbols again. The design reminded her of a pattern found in early Earth ship logs, specifically those used by the first wave of explorers who left before the Great Expansion. She searched the archives until she found a match. The symbol represented the name of an ancient mission called the Soulless Path, a group that had left Earth centuries ago and was believed to have vanished. The mission's last recorded message said they were searching for a planet suitable for long-term habitation. No trace of them was ever found. Mira looked toward the dark river through the camp window and whispered, "Maybe they found this place." In the morning, she returned to the hatch with renewed focus. Ryan and Tova joined her after breakfast. They had brought new scanning tools that could send deeper waves underground. As they worked, the machines began picking up faint echoes, not random ones but rhythmic. Ryan adjusted the receiver. "These are pulses. Something is operating inside." The pulses came in groups, repeating the same pattern over and over. Mira realized it was a code. She began recording the intervals. "It is trying to say something," she said, "or it is waiting for a reply." Before she could finish the analysis, the ground shifted slightly. A small cloud of dust rose and a low tone echoed through the valley. The metal disc began to turn slowly. Everyone froze in place. The outer rim rotated by a few degrees, and a narrow gap appeared along the edge. The air around the site filled with the smell of old metal and damp soil. The sound stopped and the hatch remained still again. The movement was small but real. Mira approached carefully. The gap was less than an inch wide, but she could see darkness beneath. The metal seemed to breathe faintly, expanding and contracting as if equalizing pressure. She reached out her hand, but Ryan stopped her. "Wait," he said. "We do not know what is inside." "I know," she said. But we have to learn why it opened. Tova used a small light probe and slipped it into the narrow opening. The video feed showed a steep tunnel leading down into a larger space. The walls were made of the same alloy and covered in dust. Then deep inside the tunnel, something reflected the light. It looked like glass or crystal. Mira saved the recording. There is definitely a chamber below. It looks like a room. The discovery changed everything. The colony council sent word to surrounding settlements, asking for technical support and safety gear. Phelan Reach, once a quiet farming colony, had suddenly become a place of history. News spread across the network. Scientists and explorers began sending requests to study the site. For now, Mira was still in charge. The council trusted her because she had found it first. But with every new discovery came new pressure. People wanted answers fast. Some believed the chamber might contain technology that could help restore the dying river. Others feared it was a grave that should never be disturbed. Mira stood at the edge of the hatch that evening, watching the setting sun cast orange light on the metal. The gap still glowed faintly, as if breathing with the earth. She thought of the people who might have built this place. Were they travelers who came to build a new world and failed? Or were they guardians who sealed something away? When darkness came, she returned to the camp and recorded her thoughts. "The tomb beneath the river is waking," she said in her report. "It is not natural. It reacts to us, to sound, to light, to touch. It feels like it recognizes us. I believe it was made by humans long ago. If that is true, then we have found proof that our history on this planet began much earlier than we believed." The next morning, as Mira prepared her tools again, she heard a soft call from Rian. He was standing beside the hatch holding a small tablet. "Look at this," he said. The sensors had picked up a new pattern of pulses. The rhythm was different now. It matched the shape of the words welcome in the ancient human code. Mira stared at the screen, her heart racing. The tomb was not warning them to stay away. It was inviting them in. She looked toward the gap in the metal and felt the weight of history pressing on her shoulders. Humanity had left many traces across the stars, but none had spoken back before. Whatever waited inside that buried chamber had been waiting for them for a very long time. And soon, she knew, they would have to open the door completely. For 3 days, the colony of Valen Reach lived in quiet tension. Everyone talked about the strange pulses in the word that appeared on Mira's tablet. The buried structure had responded in a way that no one could explain. Some believed it was a message from lost explorers. Others thought it was a warning from the past. The council decided to send a full research group to open the hatch and explore whatever was hidden beneath the river. Mira did not sleep much during those nights. She sat near the metal plate, listening to the hum that now came faintly from under the ground. It was not constant, but came in slow waves. It reminded her of breathing. Every time she placed her hand on the surface, she could feel a soft vibration. It was alive in its own strange way. On the 4th morning, a large group arrived from the capital colony. They brought heavy tools, lights, and new scanners. Among them was Dr. Halden, an old scientist who specialized in human pre-expansion history. He was tall and calm, with clear gray eyes that seemed to study everything carefully. When he saw the metal hatch, he paused for a long moment before speaking. "This is human work," he said softly, "but it is older than anything I have ever seen." Mira felt a small relief hearing him confirm what she had suspected. The team began setting up equipment around the hatch. They built a protective frame and positioned energy cutters along the sealed edge. If the mechanism refused to open naturally, they would force it. But Mira felt uneasy about that plan. Dr. Halden noticed her expression and asked, "You do not agree?" She nodded slowly. "I think it should open on its own. When we forced it before, it only responded after we stopped. Maybe it reacts to intention." Halden smiled faintly. "You believe it knows we are here?" "Yes," she said. "It recognizes us." The old scientist looked at the metal plate again. "Then we will wait and listen before we act." They decided to monitor the pulses for a full day before trying anything. The signals continued, sometimes steady, sometimes fading. Halden spent hours comparing the rhythm with ancient human code records. He confirmed Mira's earlier finding. The pattern indeed matched human signal language used centuries ago. By evening, a new sequence began to appear. It repeated 3 times, then paused. Halden translated it as "open sky safe." No one understood what it meant, but it sounded peaceful. Mira looked up at the sky, now colored gold by sunset, and wondered if the message referred to them. That night, the entire valley seemed to hold its breath. The air was warm, and the river was now a narrow path of water weaving through dry soil. Floodlights surrounded the hatch, casting long shadows. Mira, Ryan, Tova, and Halden stood close, watching the readings. The sensors picked up a sharp increase in internal pressure. "The chamber's changing inside," Ryan said. Before anyone could react, a low tone echoed through the air. It was deeper and clearer than before. The hatch vibrated and the blue lines on its surface reappeared, brighter than ever. The crowd stepped back. The metal began to rotate slowly. Dust and old soil fell away as a circular section lifted upward, revealing a dark tunnel below. Cold air rushed out, carrying a smell of age and metal. Halden raised a hand to shield his eyes from the light. "It is opening," he said. Mira's heart raced. For months she had wondered what was hidden here, and now the answer stood before her. The tunnel sloped downward, disappearing into the earth. The light from the surface barely reached its end. She turned on her lamp and leaned closer. The walls were smooth and covered with thin lines that glowed faintly, like veins of light running through the metal. The council ordered the first descent to be recorded. Mira volunteered to go first. Ryan and Halden insisted on going with her, while Tova remained at the top to monitor the readings. Each of them wore a light pack, a scanner, and a breathing mask in case the air below was stale. They stepped carefully onto the ramp and began their descent. The tunnel curved gently downward. The air felt cold but clean. The lights on the wall flickered as they passed, as if reacting to their movement. Mira ran her fingers along the wall. It felt almost warm. After walking for about 50 meters, they reached a wide chamber. The ceiling arched high above them, supported by ribs of dark alloy. In the center stood a round console surrounded by 6 glass pods arranged in a circle. Dust covered most of the floor, but the structure itself looked untouched by time. Halden approached one of the pods. Inside was a motionless figure wearing a suit unlike any modern design. The helmet was cracked, and inside lay only bones. The pod had long since failed. "These are early exploration suits," he said quietly. "No doubt about it. They are from the first human wave." Mira walked around the console. Her scanner showed a faint energy source still active inside it. On the surface, she saw engraved text. The letters were worn but readable. It said Project Solus Path, Beacon 3. Her heart pounded as she read the name. "Project Solus Path," she repeated. "That was the same mission I found in the archives." Halden nodded slowly. "It seems we have found their resting place." Ryan looked at the glass pods again. "So they died here. Why call it a beacon?" Halden ran his hand across the console. "Perhaps it was not meant to be a tomb. Maybe it was a signal post or a research station. If the mission failed, this could have been their final shelter." Mira pressed a button on the console. It lit up instantly. The room filled with a soft hum. The lights along the walls brightened and a projection appeared above the console. A man's image formed, standing tall in an old flight suit. His voice was calm and clear, though slightly distorted. "My name is Commander Allen of the Solus Path Expedition. If you are seeing this, then you are human. That means we succeeded." Mira and the others stood frozen. The holographic figure looked around the chamber as if aware of their presence. "Our ship crashed during entry," the figure continued. "We survived, but the planet was unstable. The river you found above us once flowed across a fertile valley. We built this beacon to preserve our data and our dream. Humanity will return one day, and when it does, it must continue what we began." The hologram flickered, showing short flashes of the crash, a ship falling through clouds, flames, and the building of the chamber. Then the voice returned. "We discovered an energy core capable of transforming soil and air, something that could make this world bloom. But our power cells were failing. We sealed the core below this room and encoded its system to open only when human life was detected again. If you are here, then the world still remembers us. Take what we left and restore it." The recording ended. The chamber fell silent except for the faint hum of power running through the walls. Mira felt a chill. She realized the tomb was not a grave but a message left for the future. Ryan whispered, "They wanted us to find it." Halden nodded. Yes, and they trusted that humanity would still exist to finish their work. Mira approached the console again. Below the main panel was a smaller door leading deeper into the structure. The symbol on it matched the one for the core described in the message. She knelt and examined the lock. It was old but still functional. "If this core can restore the valley, it could save Valen Reach," she said. Halden looked uncertain. "We must be careful. The technology is ancient. It could be unstable." Mira stood. If they built it to help, then we owe it to them to understand it. They began scanning the lower section of the room. The energy source below was strong but controlled. It pulsed with a steady rhythm like a heart. As they worked, the holographic console lit again briefly, repeating the same words. "Open sky safe," Mira smiled faintly. He knew we would come. After several hours, they returned to the surface. The people of Valen Reach gathered around, waiting for news. Mira told them about Commander Allen and his message. The crowd listened in silence. When she spoke of the energy core that could heal the land, a wave of hope moved through them. Elder Brand stepped forward. "So the river was never cursed. It was guarding a promise from our ancestors." Mira nodded. "Yes. They left us a gift, not a warning." The colony cheered, though fear still lingered in some hearts. Dr. Halden warned that they needed more time to study the core before activating it. If they rushed, it might destroy everything instead of saving it. The council agreed to wait for a full analysis. That night, Mira sat beside the river again. The stars reflected on the thin layer of water that remained. She looked toward the metal hatch, now open and glowing faintly from below. She thought about Commander Allen and his people. They had come here centuries ago, dreaming of a new world. They had died, but their dream had survived. Mira whispered softly, "We will finish what you started." Far below, in the heart of the buried chamber, the ancient machine pulsed once more, sensing the life above it. It had waited for generations to awaken. Now at last humanity had returned to claim its legacy. The heavy air of the tomb pressed against Mira and Ryan as they stood near the silent console. The faint blue light that had guided them for hours now flickered weakly. Around them, the glass pods were still and silent, each holding what was left of the ancient explorers who had once dreamed of shaping new worlds. The message of Commander Allen still echoed in Mira's mind. His voice had been calm, filled with hope and regret. He had spoken of a machine built to bring life to barren planets, a creation that could change climates and restore nature. But his final words were a warning. He said the engine was unfinished and that it could either bring life or cause great ruin. Mira looked at the core chamber through the thick glass window. Inside, the machine stood like a metallic heart, its surface covered with veins of faintly glowing light. Ryan was checking the readings on the console, his brow furrowed in deep thought. "This energy signature is still stable," Ryan said, "but it is decaying. If it shuts down completely, we will lose the chance to reactivate it." Mira nodded slowly. "And if we reactivate it without knowing everything, we could destroy the valley." He did not answer. The hum of the engine room was soft, yet it carried the weight of a decision that could change everything. Above them, the colony of Valen Reach still waited. The drought had returned stronger than before, and the council had ordered all access to the river site restricted. They feared that the tomb was a relic best left untouched. Mira had disobeyed that order by staying behind. She could not let a discovery like this be sealed again. To her, it was not just an ancient ruin. It was proof that humanity's earliest explorers had reached far beyond their limits, dreaming of creation rather than conquest. Ryan placed a small power cell from his pack into the console's backup slot. The lights brightened slightly, and the holographic projection of Commander Allen appeared again. The figure turned slowly toward them, his form grainy and fractured but his tone steady. "If you are hearing this," Allen said, "you are the heirs of our effort. We built this to restore what was lost. If you believe in the power of humanity to rebuild, then finish what we started." The hologram faded, leaving a silence that felt almost alive. Ryan spoke softly. He believed in it. Even after dying here, he wanted to give the next generation a chance. Mira took a slow breath. "Then maybe it is our turn to believe too." They examined the control panel closely. The interface was old but understandable. It had a simple choice: initialize restoration cycle or abort sequence. Between those two commands rested the fate of the valley. Rian hesitated. "If we start it, we might not have time to stop it. We don't know how far its energy will spread." Mira looked up at the glowing core again. "And if we don't, the people above will starve. The crops are dying. The wells are empty. This machine was meant to give life, not take it. We cannot keep living in fear." He met her eyes, searching for doubt. There was none. Finally, he gave a small nod. "Then we do this together." They began to work. Mira adjusted the flow stabilizers while Ryan calibrated the old energy nodes. The console buzzed and flashed as ancient systems came to life again. Lines of glowing light raced through the walls like veins carrying new blood, the air filled with a low hum that vibrated in their bones. Suddenly, the ground trembled slightly. Dust fell from the ceiling and one of the pods cracked. Mira froze, her heart pounding. "Keep going," Ryan said quickly. "The core is aligning. We are close." The holographic projection reappeared briefly, showing an image of green plains and rivers flowing through them. It was a vision of what the world could become. Mira smiled faintly at the sight, feeling something awaken inside her, a sense of connection to those who had built this place. Outside the tomb, the dry riverbed stretched far into the valley. The wind carried dust across the cracked earth. In the colony above, people gathered near the council tower, watching as faint tremors rippled under their feet. The council members argued, uncertain of what was happening beneath their land. Back underground, alarms started to blink on the console. The energy levels rose higher than expected. "Mira, the power draw is unstable," Ryan warned. "We might trigger a collapse. Can we control it manually?" she asked. He tried to override the surge, but the system rejected every command. It's responding to an old protocol. It's acting like it's completing its mission. The entire chamber began to glow with a deep blue light. The glass window over the core turned transparent, and Mira could see energy swirling like a storm inside. It looked beautiful yet terrifying. "Mira," Ryan said, his voice steady but filled with concern. "If we stay here, we could be trapped." She did not move. "If this works, someone needs to make sure it stabilizes. If it fails, someone needs to be here to shut it down." He stepped closer. "Then we both stay. No one is going anywhere." The hum of the machine grew louder. The blue light flooded the tunnels, reaching the outer passages. The walls pulsed as if alive. The ancient tomb that had once been silent now roared with the sound of creation waking again. Mira pressed her hand on the main activation plate. A voice from the system spoke in a calm tone, confirming the final sequence. "Restoration cycle initiated. Atmospheric balancing begins." At that moment, a column of light shot upward through the cracks of the tomb ceiling, reaching toward the surface. The valley above was illuminated with a brilliant glow that could be seen from miles away. The colonists fell silent, staring in awe as the light spread across the riverbed. The dry soil began to shift. Water burst forth from beneath the ground, clear and pure. Streams merged, forming the first flow of a new river. The people cheered, some kneeling and crying as life returned to their land. The valley that had been dying was now coming back to life. Deep below, the core chamber grew calm again. The lights dimmed to a soft pulse. Mira looked at Ryan, both exhausted but smiling faintly. "It worked," she said. "We did it," he nodded, wiping sweat from his face. "The readings show stability. The engine is controlling the flow naturally. It's rebuilding the ecosystem." But before they could leave, the console displayed one last message. The hologram of Commander Allen appeared for the final time, his image clearer than before. "To those who came after," he said, "know that humanity is not defined by fear, but by the courage to create. You have fulfilled our dream." Then the projection faded forever and the console powered down completely. The tomb began to seal itself. Heavy stone panels moved into place, closing the entrance tunnels. Mira and Ryan hurried toward the upper shaft, climbing through the narrow passage that led to the surface. Behind them, the deep hum faded into silence, leaving only the sound of water rushing through the newly restored channels. When they finally emerged under the bright morning sky, the air smelled of fresh rain. The river had returned, wide and strong, flowing through the heart of Valen Reach. Green shoots were already sprouting along the banks. The colonists gathered around them, cheering as they saw Mira and Ryan step out of the shallow waters. The council members approached, their faces filled with disbelief and wonder. Mira looked at the river, then at the people. "It was never a curse," she said softly. "It was a gift, a message from those who believed in what humanity could be." Ryan smiled beside her, "And now it's our responsibility to protect it." The colony began to rebuild with new hope. The fields turned fertile again, and the tomb beneath the river remained hidden, its secrets resting once more under the flowing waters. Mira often visited the riverbank in the evenings, watching the sunlight dance on the surface. She knew that somewhere below, the ancient engine still pulsed quietly, a reminder that the spirit of humanity, brave, creative, and unyielding, could never truly fade. The sun rose gently over Valen Reach, shining on the newly flowing river. It was wider and brighter than anyone had remembered. Water cascaded over smooth stones, forming small rapids that reflected the morning light. Green shoots grew along the banks and small fish leapt in the fresh currents. The river was alive again, carrying with it a sense of renewal that touched every corner of the valley. Mira walked along the riverbank with Rian. Both were tired, but exhilarated. They had spent weeks inside the ancient tomb, studying the core and ensuring it stabilized. Every day they had watched the river grow stronger. Now with the valley restored, they felt the true weight of what humanity had accomplished. "Look at it," Mira said, kneeling to touch the flowing water. "After all this time it remembers life." Rian nodded. "It is amazing. The tomb was not a grave. It was a gift, waiting for us to prove ourselves worthy." The colony had gathered near the river to celebrate. Farmers danced as they saw their fields turn green again. Children ran along the banks, splashing in the clean water. Even the council members, once doubtful, smiled with relief. The drought that had threatened to destroy Valen Reach was over. Administrator Sen approached Mira and Ryan. "You two have done something extraordinary," he said. "Not just for our colony, but for humanity. This valley is a testament to what we can achieve when we act with courage and care." Mira smiled. "It was not just us. It was the people who built the tomb centuries ago. They left a message and we answered it." Halden stepped forward. The old scientist had spent many days analyzing the ancient engine. "I have never seen anything like it," he said. "The design, the energy control, the purpose. Everything shows how much humanity can achieve when we aim to build rather than destroy." The river reflected Halden's words. Its currents were steady, controlled by the ancient core that still pulsed deep beneath the riverbed. The tomb had completed its task. It had waited centuries for humans to return, and now its mission was fulfilled. As the celebrations continued, Mira and Ryan decided to return to the tomb's entrance. The ancient hatch had sealed again, hidden beneath the flowing water. The metal surface glimmered faintly in the sunlight. It seemed as if it were resting, satisfied with the work that had been done. Mira knelt beside the hatch, placing her hand lightly on the cold surface. She felt a faint vibration, almost like a heartbeat. "It is still alive," she whispered. "Even now it watches over the river." Ryan looked at her with a thoughtful expression. "It trusted us to act wisely. I think it knew humanity was ready. The council had decided that the tomb would remain sealed for now. It was too dangerous to tamper with further, and the people needed time to understand the gift they had received." Scientists and historians from neighboring colonies were invited to study the site, but all agreed that the core should not be disturbed. Mira returned to the riverbank, watching as water spread into the dry fields. Farmers planted seeds, and the soil absorbed the flowing water eagerly. The valley that had been barren for months was now vibrant with life. Birds returned to the trees, and small animals cautiously ventured out to explore the renewed land. At the edge of the river, a small monument had been erected. It was simple, made of smooth stones carved with the words, "For those who dared first, and those who dare still." The monument faced the flowing water, honoring the explorers who had built the tomb centuries ago. Mira placed a small flower beside it, a gesture of respect and gratitude. As days passed, the river continued to shape the valley. Channels formed naturally, feeding smaller streams and ponds. The energy from the ancient core regulated the flow, ensuring that the water reached every corner of the farmland. The people learned quickly, adapting to the new rhythm of the river. Rian and Mira worked together to create new irrigation systems that complemented the natural flow. Using sensors and control modules, they ensured that crops would thrive without disrupting the balance established by the tomb. The valley was not only restored, but improved. Humanity had learned from the past and applied that knowledge wisely. One evening, as the sun set, Mira stood alone by the river. She watched the reflection of the sky on the water, its surface calm and steady. The distant hum of the buried engine reached her faintly, a reminder of the silent guardian beneath the river. She thought of Commander Allen and his team, pioneers who had left Earth centuries ago. They had come to this world with dreams of creation and left behind a message for future generations. Mira realized that humanity's strength was not only in technology, but in the courage to act, to learn, and to care for what had been entrusted to them. The river whispered softly over stones and reeds, carrying the energy of the ancient tomb through the valley. Mira smiled, feeling a deep connection to the past and the future at the same time. Humanity had returned to its legacy, and the valley stood as proof of what could be achieved when people dared to create rather than destroy. Ryan joined her quietly. "The valley is alive," he said simply. "We did it." "Yes," Mira replied, "and we will protect it. For them, for us, for the future." The night fell gently over Valen Reach, and the river glowed faintly under the stars. Somewhere beneath the flowing water, the ancient core continued to pulse, its mission fulfilled but still watching. The tomb had waited for humanity to return, and now it had been honored. In the days that followed, Valen Reach thrived like never before. Farmers grew abundant crops, and the children learned to swim and play in the clean water. The people built homes along the banks, taking care not to disturb the natural flow. The river had given them life again, and they treated it with respect. Mira and Ryan often visited the monument near the river. They would stand silently, remembering the pioneers who had built the tomb and left the core for them to find. Every now and then a faint glow could be seen beneath the water, a gentle pulse that reminded them of the bond between past and present. News of the valley's revival spread to neighboring colonies. Scientists came to study the river and the tomb from a safe distance. Explorers spoke of the site as a symbol of hope, proof that humanity's legacy could endure through time, even across centuries. Mira often thought about the lessons they had learned. The tomb was not just a machine. It was a story. It spoke of courage, trust, and patience. It reminded them that humanity's greatest power was not just its ability to survive, but its ability to create, to nurture, and to leave a legacy for those who would come after. One day, as the sun rose over the sparkling river, Mira saw a small bird land near the monument. It sang a short, sweet note before flying along the water. She smiled, feeling that the valley was alive in every sense. Life had returned, not by accident, but because humans had dared to listen, to act, and to honor the past. The river now flowed steadily, feeding every field, every home, and every heart in the valley. Valen Reach had been saved, and humanity had proved itself once more. Beneath the flowing waters, the tomb rested, silent yet vigilant, a guardian of life and a reminder that even the smallest acts of courage could echo across centuries. Mira and Ryan stood together, looking at the horizon where the river met the hills. "We found more than water," Mira said. "We found our legacy," Ryan nodded, "and now it is our turn to protect it." The river moved on, clear and strong, carrying life through the valley. The people of Valen Reach continued their work, planting, building, and dreaming. They had witnessed the courage of those who had come before, and they had acted with wisdom and care. Humanity's spirit had endured, and beneath the river the tomb pulsed softly, a quiet heartbeat of the past, present, and future. It had waited for humanity to return, and now, for the first time in centuries, it was at peace. The river, the valley, and the people of Valen Reach stood as proof that humanity could rise, endure, and flourish, even against time itself. The legacy of the explorers, of Mira, of Ryan, and of every person who dared to believe lived on. The river beneath the sky now carried more than water. It carried hope, life, and the unbroken spirit of humanity. Valen Reach would never forget.